Hello, everybody. This is Francesco Rulli. I'm the CEO of Querlo. I'm also the Forbes Insights AI Solution Business Partner and the Cognitive Officer of the Opera del Duomo, Florence. I'm here today with Sonia Talati. She's a senior conversation designer. She's also a former Wall Street Journal journalist, columnist, and TV anchor. So, Sonia, if you can share a little bit more insight about your work.
Sure. Hi, Francesco. Thanks for having me. So a little bit about my work. I'm in this field of AI and machine learning, which just gave birth not that long ago on the level that we're seeing it today. But where I really started was as a journalist, as a writer, always interested in how people talk about things and how to express things to other people. And getting interested in this tech space, I've now been working on some very leading Alexa skills and chatbots and Google Assistants for various different companies and for myself. And really excited to be in such a very new, innovative space that's growing and pioneering lots of creative ideas every month, every year.
Indeed, you're a pioneer in many aspects, and one of them is the adoption of artificial intelligence for your personal use. You built with the Querlo technology about 2.5 years ago, the SoniaBot.com chatbot. And now I share with you what we built with Michelangelo, artificial intelligence in collaboration with the Cathedral of Florence. What are your thoughts about the use of artificial intelligence specific to art, culture, and spirituality?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm very excited about it. I think the future is going to be very different than the way that we grew up. It's going to be about making experiences digital and about people interacting with technology. And how that interaction goes is something that's being explored at great deals right now, but we don't really see it so much out day to day. The way I imagine things is, especially with education at the younger levels, like elementary school, where you're learning about public figures, historical celebrations, all these events and time periods that we're studying in a history book, paragraph after paragraph. I would imagine those become digital experiences. That'd be something where you can go to a chatbot like Michelangelo's and learn about him in a short, quick. The student can ask questions that they're interested in, that is relevant for them. So I see a huge scope in this in the terms of education. What's really interesting to me about this particular bot is just the concept of it. When I was talking to Michelangelo on the Querlo bot, I noticed that it felt a lot more like an advanced Google search or Wikipedia search. Let's say you're curious about something or someone, want to learn more. What do we typically do now? We do a Google search. This is similar in that concept. So we're practiced with this kind of application, but instead of searching on Google, I'm asking and typing in what I want. Instead of pressing Control F to find it on the page, I'm just able to ask or put in a word or put in a phrase and get that response. So it's a much more seamless experience. And from a conversational designing perspective, it's much more fluid. It is much more real. It is much more human. And that's what excites me. There's so much room for improvement in that space.
Fantastic. So one of the reasons why we built this project was because we wanted to give a voice to Michelangelo, who passed 455 years ago. And we didn't want to give a voice from a perspective of the experts per se, but based on the questions that are asked to Michelangelo. So I can tell you that the majority of questions asked to Michelangelo today, they are actually personal questions about his personal taste on what he wears, what he eats, his sexual orientation, things that possibly a Michelangelo expert wouldn't consider as being part of the first chapter of his book or her book, but it would be actually, those are questions that are fairly unexpected. So that has been a very interesting journey for us.
That's fascinating. And you're also, the chief cognitive officer for an institution that's been there for over 700 years. What are some of the use cases you're noticing for the application of AI and spirituality?
So 700 years of history and knowledge are a lot of informations that are hard to share with people unless they travel to Florence. And we usually have over 2 million people that visit the monuments of the Opera del Duomo, or let's say the complex around the Cathedral of Florence, in which includes the cathedral, the Baptisterium, the bell tower of Giotto, and the museum. This is the 2.5 million that go to Florence to those monuments are just a fraction of those people that aspire to go to Florence, or at least they interact every day with something that is connected to the Renaissance, which is a very important period in time. So we're trying to use the digital power of artificial intelligence to bring the renaissance to people's homes, cell phones, computers, but also to create that kind of collaboration so that we can enhance even further the knowledge base associated to the Opera del Duomo. So there is a huge amount of knowledge that is untapped because of geographical location, of language distance. Instead, with artificial intelligence, we can kind of bridge this distance and build a knowledge that is more in line with people's needs. In the last few days, we had a lot of questions to Michelangelo about the US elections. And we just discussed with our team in Florence of experts that Michelangelo will have an opinion, hopefully by tomorrow, about elections and how candidates communicate with each other. It might not be an opinion pertaining to those candidates, but it will give you a perspective about his experience going back 500, between 400 and 500 years ago.
That's fascinating. I'd be curious to learn, so the kinds of questions that Michelangelo learns to answer, where do you find the input for that? Are you discovering questions that people have frequently asked? Where do you get that kind of information?
We have a reporting system in which allows us to classify what questions have been answered, what questions have been answered, but they were not satisfactory. So we do some machine learning into our own system with the help of those who actually ask the questions. And then what questions have not found any answer, and we have to consider building an answer, or let's say a policy around what is going to be dealing with this situation, just like the US elections. How do we deal with that? Do we completely disregard this question, or we seek an answer for that? So this is the process. Some questions in just a matter of mapping the question to the existing answer, because there is probably already an answer into our knowledge base. It just have to be mapped so that in the future, the same question arises, we have a good answer, or we have to do some modifications, or we have to get back to the books and research and have a debate within the team in Florence. It's a team of 4 experts. Monsignor Timothy Verdon, who is the head of the museum, originally a gentleman from New Jersey who moved to Florence 50 years ago. And then we have Rita Filardi, who is the person who reports directly to him. And then 2 younger people, Giovanni Serafini and Monica Segui. Monica is from Spain, so that they collaborate. So we have an American, 2 Italians, and 1 Spaniard that work together in Florence to empower this knowledge. On top of that, we have a network of experts in different museums that are starting to get aware of this new way of communication between humans, machine, and the past, so that we can further enrich the knowledge base of Michelangelo. We're also considering establishing a 3rd party that is a fictional version of the great-grandniece of Michelangelo, who will guide us through other museums, artists, and periods in time. But this will be discussed later on once we find the right partners and sponsors to this initiative.
That's wonderful. What you're talking about reminds me so much about how this technology is not even just about building the future, but it's like connecting the past, present, and the future together. And one of the things that I always think about when we're talking about the use cases of AI is, those ethical lines, like what is crossing that line and what's not. And whenever I'm thinking and making recommendations, I always think along the lines of, is this doing good for people? Is this serving a purpose? Is the intention well intended? And that's something that I always find to be an important thing to always have in the cap. I follow and I learn a lot from Andrew Ng, the Stanford professor, and he's wonderful. And I completely agree with him about, using AI for good purposes. And especially when it comes to these topics like spirituality, art, history, and the bots we create and the kinds of information they share. So is that something that you've thought about?
Yeah, definitely. And, it's important to find the right people to work on the knowledge base, who have the right intentions, because artificial intelligence, like any other powerful tool of communication and also knowledge development, can be used for good, also for bad purposes. So it's very important. But Sonia, before we close this conversation, we'll have more conversations together going forward. If people want to learn more about your work, what's the best way to learn more about your work and your services?
Yeah, you can just go to my website. It's stalati.com. It's S and the last name's TALATI.com, or just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always available to chat and learn more and explore ideas.
Thank you very much, Sonia. Fantastic.
Thank you.